Ready for Joan to give me the official word.
Progress.
Did you hear what happened? Your boys I put your. Okay, let's call to order the city council meeting for June 25th. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Armstrong,
Here.
Councilmember Rubio,
Here.
Councilmember Veros,
Here.
Vice Mayor Perkins,
Here.
Mayor Hudson.
Here. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Next, we have item 3, announcements, changes, or item 3.1, changes and additions to the agenda. There are 3 changes to the agenda, all pertaining to items on the consent calendar. The first change is to consent calendar item 5.3, approval of the proposed fiscal year 2024-2025 statement of investment policy. The resolution was added to the agenda packet. A resolution number was assigned and track changes were removed from the attachment. The amended item will remain on the consent calendar unless pulled off the consent calendar by a council member. The second change to the consent calendar is item 5.7, a resolution authorizing the city manager to sign Exhibit C lease supplement number 12 to the San Ramon Library lease agreement between the city of San Ramon and Contra Costa County for the operation of the San Ramon Library. This item has been withdrawn from tonight's agenda and will be placed on the agenda for the July 9th meeting. The third change to the consent calendar, item 5.10, a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute the master services and purchasing agreement with Flock Safety and authorizing a statement of work for the equipment, software, licensing, and installation for an amount not to exceed $851,500. This item has been withdrawn from tonight's agenda and will be placed on the agenda for the July 9th meeting. Next, we have item 3.2. If you wish to speak under public comment or regarding an agenda item, please fill out a speaker card located in the back of the room and submit it to the city clerk. Next, we have public comment, item 4.
If you wish to speak under public comment, please fill out a card, as she just heard, give it to our clerk. And this is for items, if you wish an item on the consent calendar to be pulled, or any item that's not on the agenda tonight. So we have any cards?
We do. We've received 1 speaker card from Greg Carr.
Greg?
Greg Carr, San Ramon. I'm coming to you tonight to make you aware of something happening in September. And I learned there's something also happening in October. It's about childhood cancer. September is Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. October, Childhood Brain Cancer Awareness Month. I'm speaking for the first one, but I'd also tag along with the second one. I would like you to consider placing on the first meeting agenda in September a special presentation to highlight the status of research for childhood cancers. I speak to you with some knowledge of this because my grandson, Enzo, when he was 4, had that. He's so far clean, he's almost 5 years. 2 of you were here the night that my son-in-law, Dr. Daniel Keller, and I spoke. And he held up a photograph. I have the same photograph. I bring it tonight so that you can see what this is about. 2 of you know this. I'm not trying to be uppity about it, but here is what you see when your grandson is taken to the ER 12 hours prior. And I'll do this for all of you behind me. It's a come to Jesus event in your life. And I show it to you because it's a big deal. Less than 5% of the money spent on cancer research in our country is for childhood cancers. I guess I have a special interest, and that seems a little wrong to me. So it would be nice if you could put that on that special presentations and highlight a group or an organization that is, to my knowledge, the only organization in the city of San Ramon, let's call it homegrown, that is trying to do something about childhood cancer. That's called the Enzo and Me Pediatric Cancer Foundation. It's run by my daughter, Krista Keller, and her husband, Dr. Daniel Keller. I'm not trying to promote that because of me or them. I'm trying to promote it because of the thing it talks about. Childhood cancer is terrible. And the thing that needs to be done is more research needs to be done. So I would appreciate if that could be put on the September ballot. And if you want to get a hold of her or him, just contact me, or you probably can easily find them. And they know what they're talking about when it comes to childhood cancer research, foundations, and trying to raise money amongst the populace to do something about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
Okay, next speaker, please.
There are no other speakers.
Do we have any written? No written come? Okay.
No written comments.
Public comment is closed.
Well, can we, can we make a motion to have that considered?
No, but that's not on the agenda. But we can, when you get to your comments at the end,
Okay,
you wish to make a comment about, but we can't discuss it.
okay, Great.
Okay,
thank you.
next item, please.
Item number 5, consent calendar.
I move the consent calendar.
I'll second that.
With item 5.3 as amended and withdrawing 5.7 and 5.10.
Yeah, that's already added, right?
Yeah,
Correct.
I think we have to state it explicitly, but. Okay.
Right.
okay, looks like it's unanimous. Consent calendar passes. Next item, please.
Okay, item number 6, special presentations. Item 6.1, proclamation declaring June 2024 as Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month. Presentation to Maya Gertson, Director, Walk to End Alzheimer's from the Alzheimer's Association.
And Marisol Rubio is going to be sitting in for me on this one.
Thank you, Mayor Hudson, for that opportunity. Absolutely come forward, please. As many of us have experienced this firsthand with our loved ones, I being one of them, just lost my father 2 years ago to Alzheimer's disease. So thank you for being here and all the work you do. Whereas Alzheimer's disease is a degenerative brain disease and the most common form of dementia, and whereas dementia tragically robs individuals of their memories and leads to progressive mental and physical impairments, and whereas nearly 7 million people in the United States are living with Alzheimer's disease, and 1 in 3 seniors die with Alzheimer's or another dementia, and whereas according to the Alzheimer's Association Facts and Figures report, in 2024, Alzheimer's and other dementias will cost the nation $360 billion, with over 11 million caregivers providing more than 18 billion hours of unpaid care to those with Alzheimer's or other dementias. And whereas the city of San Ramon recognizes these individuals, families and friends and caregivers dealing with Alzheimer's disease, and the researchers who are seeking a cause or cure And whereas the city of San Ramon also recognizes the efforts of the Alzheimer's Association to raise funds and promote awareness to fight Alzheimer's disease and other dementias, thereby improving the quality of life for those living with the disease and their caregivers. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City Council of the City of San Ramon does hereby recognize June 2024 as Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month and encourages all citizens to wear purple to help spread global awareness of the Alzheimer's Association's vision of a world without Alzheimer's disease. Thank you.
Thank you. And if you'd like to add a few words, please.
Thank you so much. My name is Maya Gertzen. This is Courtney Pritchard. She's one of our amazing volunteers. She helps me on our planning committee for the East Bay Walk to End Alzheimer's. And that takes place every year here in San Ramon. This year it's Saturday, October 26th in Bishop Ranch. And it's our largest fundraiser for Alzheimer's care, support, and research. So we appreciate you helping us to create awareness for this disease and would love for everyone to participate on October 26th. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maya and Courtney for doing that. Since the last time you were here, I lost my mother to four years of pretty severe dementia. My wife also lost her mother to dementia, and we both participated in the Walk for Alzheimer's last year. So look forward to that again.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you for all that you do.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. We're very grateful.
Okay, item 6.2, introduction of Deputy Chief Jonas Aguilar by Fire Chief Paige Meyer.
Mayor
Hey,
Hudson.
Paige.
Hi, Vice Mayor Perkins, members of the council, City Manager Spadowski. Thank you for having us. It's always an honor to be here. You're probably asking yourself, why are you introducing Jonas Aguilar? You've met him before. But this time I wanted to introduce him as the representative that's going to be coming to the council meetings as your fire representative. So we're excited to announce that. So that you have somebody that can come in and continue to be available for questions. We're always here for you from a question perspective. But before I get into Chief Aguilar, Mayor Hudson, you need to quit calling us. You need to take care of yourself.
I
I'm
got the
kidding.
bill. I will quit
I
calling
heard
you.
it. Remember, we never charge our citizens, so send that bill to me. But and that's serious. But you need to know that our folks really do care and you can come out and by all reports, I will say you were a good patient. That's what I heard. But now back to Chief Aguilar. Chief Aguilar actually has a history in the military. He was in the Army Infantry as a Bradley tank commander. Yeah, there you go.
We won't hold it
Yeah,
against
you
you.
He makes sure, he makes sure I get it right too. If I say anything else, he might hit me. But then he worked like most former Bradley tank commanders, worked some odds and end jobs afterwards. But ended up fortunately working with the San Ramon Valley Fire Protection District as a firefighter paramedic. From there, he rose through the ranks, engineer, captain, training captain. And as a matter of fact, he ran a lot of our fire academies. Unfortunately for those in the academy, being with his history in the military, he definitely ran a very tight ship. And we had great
Ship, I like
yeah,
that.
there, I did that for you. But they enjoyed it, and he really rose through the ranks there, eventually becoming a battalion chief, a training chief, and now he's our operations chief and second in command for the district. City of San Ramon for us is, a great partner, our largest contributor to our property tax revenue, which I know you're going to talk about later. We understand the value of the relationship, which is why we continue to look for partnerships, and you'll hear them throughout the next year or two. We continue to look for ways to leverage each other's opportunities and reduce the financial impact of different issues that we're challenged with. But Chief Aguilar will be here. He's an excellent representative of the district. You'll probably see him once a month. He'll make every once in a while, I'll give you an update And one of the things I want to give him a lot of credit for as well as the city, and I know people know this, but from a perspective of the mental health program, the first responder program, he's been leading the charge on the fire side. Your police department's been amazing to work with. I think there's a lot of success, and hopefully you've heard about that. And we'll continue to inform the council of all the ways that we're making an impact for the, mental health and the public safety for the folks in the city of San Ramon. I don't know if you have anything to add, or you're good. Okay. All right.
No,
We'll
you
take
gotta
any-
speak.
Yeah, no, and we'll take any questions. I mean, I know it's getting to be fire season. We're getting an early start this year after a couple of years of a couple slow years. But we're happy to answer any questions, but we're excited to have Jonas Aguiar represent our district here with the city of San Ramon.
You've been providing a lot of mutual aid lately?
Yeah, we just got back from sending some folks out to Calaveras County. And we provide, actually, we're unique. We provide not only engines, we do firefighter paramedics that go first as a single resource that kind of help keep those folks that are on the front line safe and can provide assistance to them. We are in the process, and I'm not going to say say it right, but we're in the process of getting a vehicle that is solely dedicated. It's essentially an ATV on steroids is the best way I can put it, but it's dedicated to going to these fires and being able to drive in areas that other folks can't to get firefighters out, which we're excited about. So we're knee deep in it. And we also have a partnership with CAL FIRE coming up in the Morgan territory that we're excited about. And I think that partnership is important, especially for our valley. So things are good.
And looks like you launched your application for San Ramon Valley Fire District app on
Yes,
Apple
we
Store.
did. Yeah,
Yeah.
we did. We are recruiting constantly, and we also are proud to say this. We do a recruitment, and we're recruiting for dispatcher. We've been recruiting for firefighter, paramedic as well. One of the things I think it's important, and we put it out all the time, and we'll keep you informed. We have scholarship programs as well. We just partnered with Contra Costa College to basically support financially a scholarship, 2 scholarships for firefighter, paramedic, future firefighter, paramedic folks that want to get in the business. So we give our own scholarships. We are working with the college on the scholarships, and it's really increased our ability to get outreach throughout Contra Costa County. But we do a scholarship position for dispatcher, firefighter, paramedic, and fire inspector. And so far, the program's been spectacular. I know folks in the crowd may know this. It's tough to recruit these days. One of the things that we've done is we've taken it upon ourselves to have to kind of develop our own talent. And that has worked wonders compared to just going out and trying to, see how many applicants we can get. And it's really focused on the citizens within our district. So we give a lot of weight to folks in our district that would like a scholarship. So financially, it helps them out too, and in difficult times, as we all know.
Well, please thank Drew for me and give him a scholarship if he wants to do more.
Okay, I will. I will do
I
that.
thought I was going to spend a lot of time on that floor until he came along.
Yep.
So congratulations, Chief. I had a question about the scholarship. Is this kind of like sort of a replacement or parallel to like a volunteer fire positions, or
it's
is there
more
a separate program for that?
It's more aggressive than that. But what we're trying to do is, paramedic school typically runs about $15,000. So a lot of times folks that might not have the money to be able to put themselves and write a check for $15,000, what we do is we pay for that. And we pay for that paramedic program. They go to the program. At the end, they are our employee, and they come and they work in what we call a single role function. So they only do ambulance work, and then we slowly groom them through our volunteer program to become full-fledged firefighter paramedics. But when they get out, they're making a good salary, great job. And as far as the inspector and the dispatchers, we actually pay them to get educated, and then they end up being trainee interns, but we pay them during that 1 year. So they get paid not as much as a inspector one or a full-fledged dispatcher, But after the 1 year, after they get their training, we then can transition them in and they go right to the first step. And it gives us a chance to know who we're working with. And so far, I think our success rate's in the 90+% range. We've had about 20 scholarships over the last 5 years that we've been working through, and it really makes a difference because they get to see the expectations that we have, and they get groomed from the beginning. So we found it to be very effective. So these are great opportunities, and right now, and you have to be careful. Money's always an issue, but it's a small amount of money to invest in members of our community, whether it be the kids that grew up here or people in Contra Costa County that don't get that opportunity. And even if they go on, and that's always a great compliment, even if they go on and they're successful other places, we feel like we made an impact in their lives and in the fire service in general. So it's been very positive.
And how long is the paramedic school?
Typically 9 months.
Okay.
So it's a 9-month program. And then, but when they get done, they go, the last 3 or 4 months is an internship in the field. So the beauty of us taking them on as scholarships is a lot of times you need some place to go do your internship. Well, we've got the spot. So when they come intern with us, we work out all the bugs and the way we do business. And, you know, I think that we all know here, our expectations are extremely high. So when they come in, they don't have maybe some of the habits they might have had from a private ambulance company or somewhere else, and we can really work on their internship. And so when we sign them off the internship, we don't have to, when we hire folks from the outside, we have to put them through another internship. So we're actually doing that and killing 2 birds with 1 stone, so to speak.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good. Always like to see more and more improvement.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.
And
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Congratulations, Deputy.
Are you sure there's anything you want to add, Jonas?
Oh, he will. He will.
Happy to be here.
Welcome aboard. Okay, thank you. Next item, please.
Okay, item number 7, deferred consent items. We have none. Item number 8, unfinished business. Item 8.1, resolution number 2024-080, adopting the fiscal year 2024-25 operating and capital budget, establishing an appropriations limit and authorizing carryover project appropriations. We have staff report by Candace Daniels, our Finance Division Manager.
Good evening, Mayor, Council.
Hi,
Thank
Candace.
Not Candace. The main event is right behind me, but I will introduce everything. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's important to pause at this moment and recognize the hard work that all of you did in giving us the direction we needed to get to tonight. We all know that this year was a little different in that the severity of the challenge was greater, but we didn't stop there. We persisted, and that led to us presenting tonight a balanced budget. Along the way, we addressed the $17 million structural shortfall. And tonight, what we present to you in detail, as a summary rather, how we did that and what we are putting forward to meet our legal obligation of a balanced budget by June 30th. And with that, I will hand it over to Candace Daniels, our budget manager.
Hi, Candace.
Good evening, everyone. So as Scott said, we're here tonight to adopt the fiscal year 24-25 operating budget and capital improvement program. So just to go over the budget process really quickly, we started the process in January. Departments work on all of the requests in February and they finalize that. City manager does a review of the budget in March. We did a revision of the budget to balance the budget in March and April. The 5-year forecast was presented to the council on March 26th. We did our first budget workshop for the council on April 23rd. Second budget workshop with the proposed budget and the 5-year CIP was on May 28th. We did another workshop on June 4th, and we're here today on June 25th to adopt the budget. So the operating budget for all city funds is $131 million. And it's broken down in the following categories. I'm sorry, total budget for all city funds, total expenditures. The operating budget portion is 96.8 million. The capital program is 10.9 million. The internal service funds are 17.7 million. We have debt service of 5.2 million and special funds, which are non-operating special revenue funds of 400,000. And the Doherty Valley GAD, which is also included in the operating budget, is 1.3 million. So you just have the graph breaking that down in percentages on the left. On the next slide, this is the revenue budget for all city funds, 140 million, 0.3. And 62.4% of that is for general purposes, which amounts to 87.6 million. And the other 37.6 is special revenue, which is for restricted purposes. And that's broken down into the following categories. We have special revenue for capital projects, 12.4 million. Special revenue for special districts such as the GAD, 14.1 million. Internal services, 18.2. Capital improvement program, 700,000. Debt service of 3.5 million. And the housing successor agency of 3.8 million. Next slide. So this is the operating budget, which is 96.8 million. For the expenditures, and the categories for that for the departments, general government is 5.9 million. Excuse me. Administrative services, 5.1 million. Community development is 5.8 million. Police services, 30.2 million. Public works, 40.6 million. Parks community services is 8.8 million, and then non-departmental is 300,000. So the revenue for the operating budget totals 101.7 million. And the graph below shows it broken down in percentages and in dollar amounts. Moving on to the next slide. So now we put together general fund and Doherty Valley. The total is 87.6 million. And listed by department, you have general government at 5.6 million. Admin services at 5.1 million. Community development, 5.8 million. Police services, 30.2 million. Public works, 32.1 million. Parks and community services, 8.8 million, and non-departmental is 100,000. And the graph on the left shows it broken down, shows the revenues broken down, which is 87.6 million by type, such as TOT, property tax, property transfer tax, etc. So the next slide shows staffing at the city for the past 10 years. You will notice between fiscal year 23 and 24 and 24-25, we had a reduction in staffing. There were 6 positions that were permanently removed from the budget due to being unfunded for several years. So the internal service fund, starting with the infrastructure maintenance fund, we had a beginning balance of 400,000, transfer in of about 700,000 from the general fund. We're using 700,000 for capital improvement projects. We're ending the balance with 400,000. And there was a study done recently by Public Works that determined that there is a need for several million more dollars for future funding for projects. The next fund is the healthcare fund. We started with a balance of 2.8 million. We had charges, which are revenue to departments, 10.3 million. The cost for healthcare is 10.3 million in 24-25. Excuse me. We have a transfer out of 1.8 million, which is the PARS trust that's going to the general fund that we discussed in our budget meetings previously. And we're ending the fund balance at $1 million. We have about 36 million set aside in the SERP trust for OPEB expenditures, and that was the balance as of April 2024. Our next actuarial valuation is due September 2024, which will be presented to the Finance Committee after it's completed. And just a reminder that we are allowed to request reimbursement from the Trust for All Retiree Health Benefits. And we don't have any deposits scheduled, or budgeted for 24-25. Did I miss something? Okay, sorry about that.
That would be a
The Pars,
first.
I skipped over, sorry about that. So the Pars Trust, as I mentioned, we'll be transferring 1.8 million from that trust to the general fund to help balance the budget. And we had an estimated balance in April of 1.8 million. We have no plans to deposit any money into the trust for 24-25. The pension liability is 42 million. That's the unfunded accrued liability per CalPERS in the July 2023 actuarial reports. All of the funds are between 80 and 85% funded. Some of the strategies that the city has implemented over the past years has been establishing a second tier of benefits for classic members who were hired after July 2012. Employees are paying the full employee portion plus 3% of the city's portion. We have the pension trust to pre-fund obligations, and we've issued 2 pension obligation bonds to reduce interest cost. So for the debt service funds, we have a total of about 5.2 million that we're going to pay out in debt service for 24-25. And we have one debt, which is the 2012 LED lights that'll be paid off in November 2024. All other debt issues have maturities of 2035 or beyond.
We had a COP that was paid off last year?
Correct.
Okay, so we used to have, what was it, COP number 12?
That's
That was
correct.
paid off, actually,
In 2023-24.
23-24, the year we're currently in. Okay.
Correct.
So that was good news that we don't have that debt service going forward, and we only have 100,000 left on the LED lights. And from here on out, it's reduced electrical costs going
Yes.
forward.
Any other questions? I'm sorry, Candace, still got more?
Oh, yeah.
So for the reserves, our general reserve policy requires that there's 36% in reserves of the prior year estimated general fund expenditures and the Doherty Valley transfer. That was $63 million. So we are having projected reserves starting on July 1st of 22.3 million. The proposed change in reserves will be an increase of 400,000, ending us with a balance of 22.7 million at June 30th, 2025. Any questions on that?
Any questions? No, we're still rolling.
Okay, so this is just a recap of the capital improvement program. It's at $10 million. We have 5.2 million in circulation. The drainage category has 40,000. Facilities, 1.2 million. Landscaping, 222,000. Other categories also 222,000. Parks is 3 million and signals at 113,000. So next slide, we are here to request that you adopt the 2024 resolution for the operating and capital budget, which establishes expenditure authority for the city, also establishing the appropriations limit as required by state law, and authorizing any carryover of unspent capital improvement project funds. So for the next steps, staff will finalize the budget and the capital improvement document for distribution. The budget will be posted on the website and it will be submitted to the GFOA and CFOA for consideration for the budget awards. Are there any questions?
Any questions?
Oh.
No?
I found it interesting that on the news tonight before I came, that one of the lead items was Oakland will have their first finance committee meeting on the budget was today, with the Oakland Council meeting to have their first discussion of their budget. And they're a couple of $100 million out of whack. And they're going to use the sale of the Coliseum, their half ownership of the Coliseum and arena property, to balance their budget. They're going to use that one-time funds. Now, we're using some one-time funds, I understand, I just found that using the sale of that very large piece of property as a interesting that they're waiting till the 27th hour, to do this. But we're not there.
So am I.
Any other
I want to
questions?
thank staff for all the work that you've done. I know we had really pretty challenging year this year. I think, at least in my short tenure, like within 4 years, but then Vice Mayor Perkins mentioned in past that this is first time in 24 years.
In 21 years.
21 years, yeah. So
Mhm.
I know thanks to our council as well as city
Mhm.
manager working on through. I know you had challenges to get these numbers work as we needed. And I know our all department heads, thanks for putting your heads together. It's not easy to provide quality services to our community as we keep developing as well as we moving forward with your um, staff requirements out there, but still you are holding that accountable and then moving forward with the available budget. We appreciate that. So thanks. I think I don't have any questions. We asked all those questions in our previous meetings.
I did want to make one more comment. And like Sridhar said, thank you to all the staff and all the hard work you, but unfortunately, we probably have to look forward to a very challenging year. And we're looking for ideas on how to improve our financial condition. So this time next year, we will be hopefully in a better place, but there was a politician many years ago. It says, yeah, don't let go to waste a good crisis. Meaning that if you find ways to reduce and improve, you don't want to always go back to the way you were. There may be some things that can be left behind. And it'll be worthwhile to see where we need to restore, and it'll be worthwhile to see where we can leave things behind. So thank you very much, city manager, finance staff, department heads, division leaders, and all. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Do we have any speaker cards to this?
We have not received any written public comment, but we do have one speaker card from Greg Carr.
Okay, thank you. Let's open the public comment then.
Greg Carr, San Juan resident. Imagine I'm a guy who works all day, comes home and doesn't want to be hassled by this, doesn't want to hear bad news, but he receives this in the mail, city report. He goes through it, turns to page 2, bottom left, it says, initial projections from the city of San Juan's finance department this spring have identified 14.1 million budget shortfall. Then Senator Call, the city has balanced its budget across the past 5 years by cutting expenditures, including freezing vacant staff positions, which I assume no heads rolled, just vacant heads, delaying maintenance where it was not an immediate health and safety risk, and delaying the planned replacement of vehicles and equipment. So I'm this guy, I'm thinking, my God, we got a $14.1 billion shortfall. What's going on? So I get curious. I go on the site and I see there is an agenda for today's meeting, and I come down and I get the staff report for 8.1, which is what's being talked about. In here, there's no discussion of a $14.1 billion shortfall. Nothing. And there is no comment about how they came up with that to balance the budget. This presents itself like the balanced budget, but it doesn't talk about how they got there. And it also doesn't say how much did each department contribute, aside from capital improvement programs and that. You go through it, it's quite lengthy. and it gets to the resolution, everything's hunky-dory. And it has a couple of, columns of numbers. And of course, this guy can't comprehend them. And, frankly, a lot of people can't. And that's the staff report. So he decides he's going to come down and he listens to that. Well, it's basically a mastication of this with some more stuff. There's a phrase I've learned. I've worked offshore, a lot of places, significantly in Mexico, Central America, and a place called Colombia. And a saying comes to my mind when I sit here and listen to this and see this. No me tiras a loco. And what that means, loosely translated into, English, don't shine me on. Don't think I'm an idiot. And so this guy goes away very disappointed. And there is no, conversation about alternatives that could be used to balance the budget other than what is presented in item 9.1. I find that a great disappointment, a big hole, a smoke screen. I think there should have, the full picture should have been painted for the people. Now, not a lot of people here. There's a group who are all for a sales tax increase, but I don't see a lot of other folks besides staff. And so, through the mayor, to those of you on the camera listening to this, you only have yourselves to blame for not coming down here and trying to hear what's going on, see what's going on, and act accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other cards?
There are no other cards.
Okay, close public comment. And in any response to this?
Well, I'd like to point out that we had 4 meetings in which those elements were discussed. This is the final result of those discussions. So if you had been here for the prior 4 meetings, you would have heard what the alternatives were. In the last one, we decided what the alternatives were so that the finance department could put together the final budget for our final approval tonight that has to be done before Sunday night. This was the last scheduled meeting in the month, so this was the last opportunity to have a balanced budget presented to the council. So if you'd been here for the prior 4 meetings, you would have heard everything you asked for.
Yeah, but
No, you cannot comment back.
He knows.
Comment is closed.
I want to credit this stuff.
Yes, that's the way meetings are run. You know this. You sat here. You know this.
Okay, all right. I'd also like to say thanks to the staff and city manager for getting us to this point to where we do have a balanced budget. It has been a lot of work over all those hours of workshops that we spent talking about these things. And in fact, it wasn't just a $14.1 million shortfall. It turned out to be a $17.6 million deficit that we had to work out once we figured we were dipping into our general reserve too much. But I know in doing all those cuts, especially at that April 13th workshop, every department who, they identified their 10% cuts, everybody was impacted. It hurt everybody. We were able to restore some of those cuts. But we're going to see some reductions in services because of that in doing some of those spending cuts and some of those reductions. And whether that's direct impact or whether that's through the not being able to fund certain staff positions, which effectively equates to reduction in services as well. But I mean, I think about some of the unfunded positions. There were 6 mentioned tonight. I know we had a couple police vacancies as well. We end up curtailing some of the Doherty Valley tree replacement program, some reductions in our pavement management program, cut some of the parks and community services programming and some library hours. We You know, I was even out at Creekside Park checking out a broken soccer goal the other day, and the grass is starting to turn brown. So I know we're having some impacts right now. People are going to start to see this. I hope it won't be too bad. I hope the service reduction isn't going to be too noticeable, but we had to get to a balanced budget. We got there tonight. As I said in the last meeting, our last city council meeting, you know, it's just like all of us, we're experiencing problems in our own home finances with, you know, cost of utilities going up, you know, gas, water, electricity, things like that, insurance. And when all these things start going up, you know, you got three choices. You can cut spending, you can increase your income somehow or increase your revenues, or you can do a combination of both. And this year we did a combination of both. We did some serious spending reductions, but we also did some things like user fee studies that led to changes in our user fee schedule and things like that. So we're going to get some revenue enhancements this year as well. But it's just not enough. You know, for the deep future, it gets us to where we are today, but we still need to look at, you know, some longer term options on how we can make up for the structural deficit that we seem to have now for the last few years. We've been working on this for several years. And so we've seen this coming, and that's why we took actions to hire the consultants to do these studies. We, you know, hired consultants to look at different options that we have and that sort of thing. And but I think we're going to have to continue to explore more options. I wouldn't say, you know, even things like, you know, we're not talking about it now, but won't make too much of a difference, but transit occupancy tax, maybe a new business license fee schedule or a structure, maybe it's property transfer tax increases. There's other things out there that we can look at in the future, as well as maybe even, you know, taking a look at if with some of these staff reductions, as Vice Mayor Perkins mentioned, you know, maybe we even look at, you know, outsourcing or contracting out some of these things and still get the services done, but maybe at a less costly way than having to pay full-time salary and benefits. Now, I know that's not what the staff wants to hear, but that's an option too, I think we need to be creative in the future because we're going to continue to have a structural deficit unless we kind of figure this out going into the future. So, but I thank the staff. I know it was painful, and I applaud you for what you did, digging deep, you know, 10% cuts across the board and generally. And thank you, City Manager, for kind of getting us to this point.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to repeat everything that's been said because I think all of my fellow council members have pretty much stated everything, the exhaustive process that was put into place. I know we reached out to community members to get their feedback, and we're very transparent about what some of these cuts were going to entail. And I think that this wasn't easy. I mean, there's a lot of things that were working against us, some that we can control and many that we couldn't. So as was mentioned, the increase in cost of labor, utilities, insurance, that increases all operations costs. There's and improvement costs. And certainly, you know, I think, you know, we have to sometimes make tough decisions in an effort to preserve the solvency of the city right now. But I also think that you know, kicking the can down the road is not a good strategy. That has not worked, and I would not support. I don't think that is a wise choice because the things that drove the increase in cost are not going to change. And that's certainly not going to change as the city continues to grow. So I know that we did it, we made tough decisions together and we really diversified our portfolio in terms of where we made those cuts so that we weren't, like pinching too deeply in one area or another. So that's all I can say. I know, we all acted in good faith and did the best that we could under very difficult circumstances. Thank you to our staff for everything you've done. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, I want to add one
Go
comment.
ahead, Sridhar.
Thanks, City Manager Spadowski, for holding our community events. I would like to encourage, based on at least from the public comment, I think it will be nice that we can have a few more public town hall calls so that folks who have the questions, they can always ask you if they have any questions. I know we pretty much pretty much opened up whole financial what do you call, like, as an operation, right, within past 4 meetings, as Vice Mayor Perkins mentioned clearly, that those 4 meetings we went in and out throughout the pages of the budget and what we could do. But maybe the residents and citizens may be not able to review all that, so it will be nice that if you can hold on a couple of town hall meetings so that they can come and
We,
do
we
any
had
Q&A.
2 workshops, right?
I'd like
With
to
the
ask the
public.
city manager if he could comment on how many public events that he held on the budget, and some of them were to dedicated groups and some of them were more
Yeah.
general.
And we're talking about two different paths, but they're related. One is our annual budget adoption process, which you mentioned earlier was 4 public meetings, including a workshop. The public can still download those agendas outlining all the cuts that were considered and some of the items presented to the council. So that's directly related to the budget, but our financial outreach has included over 20 events, including 3 forums, multiple in-person events, and we also had a virtual event on Zoom where you can still see the results of that online. That's on our YouTube channel, outlining the funding situation here in San Ramon. We've also had 2 direct one direct mailer to all the residents with a community survey and other outreach events. So we're open to meet with any group. We've extended an open invitation at each one of these meetings if a group would like to meet to have a review of the city's financial situation, which frankly, we have never really had this level of outreach about our finances here in San Ramon, at least in the 23 years or so that I've been here, outlining how low our tax rates are across the board in any category that you can pick compared to most cities in the Bay Area. And this city has grown, and we've done an excellent job building new facilities. And now we need to figure out a way through those, many, many years of adding parks and new structures and new services. We need to, as a community, figure out a way to maintain and operate those services with all the challenges. So that's all outlined in the presentation that they can look at on YouTube. And later on tonight, I'll be announcing another presentation that we will have on Friday.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I would say, I think one of the things you're gonna find is you're gonna start getting comments about reorganization, how to cut back that way, but I don't know if you're gonna start at this point with the operating budgets far along as we are. But that's gonna be one of your challenges going forward. I know you're so looking forward to it.
Well, Mayor, and we're open to any and all suggestions. If there's anything that any member of the public can suggest, we will look into it for cost savings. I can add, though, that the budget reductions that we have in this budget, some of them, I would say the majority of them have not hit yet, but there have been some service reductions that we already started in the city, and we're starting to hear complaints, in particular about some summer activities and other activities. So I think the magnitude of this round of budget cuts will really start to be noticed in the community in the next 3 to 4 months. So it may not seem to some like a lot on paper yet, but when that reality hits, it'll be pretty tough.
So what's the direction of the council? at
I'd
this
like
point?
to move the resolution 2024-080, resolution adopting the fiscal year operating capital budget and establishing appropriation limit and authorizing carryover of project appropriations.
I second that.
Hey, Dave, punch. You did. It's done. There we are.
Okay. Next item, please.
Next, we have item 9, new business. Item 9.1, sales tax revenue measures, field poll presentation. We have a staff report and presentation by Scott Cole, Deputy City Manager.
Scott?
Okay, just loading it. Give me 1 second. All right, perfect. For a second time, thank you very much for having us. This is an important conversation, essentially extending off of the last item. This is a sales tax ballot measure, polling result conversation to review the results, and then ultimately the outcome for tonight is to provide direction to staff on what to bring back on July 9th, in particular around a rate for a sales tax measure. If we are to introduce or to have the conversation, we'd like to know which direction to take to prepare for July 9th. Some thoughts leading into the presentation from our polling consultants in kind of in line with what we talked about. Budget cuts that the directors and departments took amounted to about $8 million. That doesn't come in, 1 week. It comes in multiple conversations evaluating the work that needs to be done, but it also comes from years of community feedback. And that's ultimately what tonight is about, is to understand after all of the outreach events, those are informal, they're anecdotal, but ultimately what the council is looking for, staff are looking for, is some clarity about the tone and tenor, the feasibility of a study, of a sales tax measure. And ultimately, that's what we enlisted over a year ago, thanks to the leadership of this council. We sought out the help from EMC Research. They have done a series of polls of the community, statistically valid in nature, and they are here tonight to present the final results of that to you. And specifically, we have Jessica Polsky Sanchez here from EMC Research, and I will hand it over to her.
Thank you for coming, Jessica. One thing I'd like you to go over is how were the persons selected that you chose? How did you choose them, and why is it a statistically valid poll to the limits of your statistics there?
Sure thing. Thank you so much for having me. Jessica Polsky Sanchez from EMC Research, and I am representing EMC on behalf of Sarah Labatt, who led this project for EMC Research, but couldn't be here this evening. So just first to speak directly to your question, these are a few notes on the methodology. So what we do is we use scientific sampling. So we obtain a random and representative sample of 600 voters, and those are drawn from the registrar of voters. So a list of registered voters here in the city of San Ramon, and they are determined based on vote history to be likely voters. So what we do is we obtain scientifically a sample of likely voters, and we went for a target of 600 interviews very intentionally. And by using scientific sampling, we're able to project the results among those 600 voters, respondents, onto likely voters throughout the city within a margin of error. And the overall margin of error for a sample of 600 interviews is plus or minus 4 percentage points. In order to reach these 600 likely voters, we used multimodal methodology. So we reached them both through telephone interviews as well as online interviews by email or text invitation. And we conducted these interviews last month in May 14th through 21st. We also used what's called a split sample methodology in order to test two potential sales tax rates. So the sample was effectively divided into two equal parts, 300 interviews in each of them demographically and geographically representative of likely voters from the city. And when we look at the results within each split, the margin of error is higher for the smaller sample size of 300 interviews. The margin of error for that sample size is plus or minus 5.65 percentage points. We did provide interviews in both English and Chinese. And as you'll see in this presentation, in a couple instances, we have results to compare from a survey conducted last year of 500 likely voters here in the city. So first, kind of a warm-up question. This helps us understand how voters in the city are feeling very broadly. So we start off with this question: do you think that things in San Ramon are generally going in the right direction, or do you feel things have gotten pretty seriously off on the wrong track? And as you can see here, both in 2023 and more recently in 2024, we have 72% who say things are going in the right direction and 23% saying things are off on the wrong track. 5% can't choose one or the other. That's overwhelmingly positive. So you do have some optimistic voters here in the city. We also asked voters, respondents, to rate the job being done by the city of San Ramon in providing services and taking care of the needs of San Ramon residents. And we asked, on a scale of excellent, good, only fair, or poor, how would you rate the city on that? And you can see 68% rate the city as excellent or good on providing services and taking care of the needs of the residents, 30% rating that as only fair or poor. When it comes to the job being done by city government in managing the city's budget and finances, a majority positive, 56% excellent or good, and 39% only fair or poor.
In your experience, are these middling, high, or low for municipals of roughly our size?
These are on the positive side, I would say, anecdotally, compared to other areas that we survey. There are some places right now where ratings of financial management are, much more negative. And then the 2/3 that are giving a positive rating of the job you're doing overall essentially is quite positive.
Just for a reference point, what is the lowest number you saw, if you remember?
Oh, that's a great question, but honestly, I can't say off the top of my head because I've been doing this for 17 years now. So I'd have to go back into the records.
Thank you.
Okay, so a few questions that we asked to help understand how voters in the city are feeling generally about taxes and trust in the city. And so we asked this series of questions and we asked, do you agree or disagree with each of these statements? On the top, instead of asking for a tax increase, the city should tighten its belt and cut spending to only the most essential services. We do have a majority, 67%, who at least somewhat agree with that sentiment, 33% disagree. On the next one, I trust the San Ramon city government to do what is right all or most of the time. 2/3, 65% agree with that statement. Taxes are already high enough. I would vote against any tax increase regardless of how it might be used. 64% do at least somewhat agree with that statement. 35% disagree. And then lastly, maintaining high quality city services and facilities is important to our quality of life in San Ramon, even if it means raising taxes. You have nearly 2/3 who agree with that sentiment, 36%
Some of those
disagree.
seem contradictory.
Yes, absolutely. And that's common. We like to ask these as separate questions because oftentimes people will hold somewhat contradictory sentiments both at the same time. I might somewhat agree that I don't want to vote for new taxes, but I also agree that it is important and worthwhile to raise taxes to maintain high quality services. So I might contradict myself a little bit as a respondent and answer that I agree with both of those questions.
And also when you're saying raising taxes, there is no metrics in that, right? Do you mention like 1 cent, 2 cent, nothing like that, right?
Not yet.
That
Not
can-
based on these questions. We do have a
Yeah.
very specific question later in the poll.
So this was asked over all 600.
Yes, these are all asked of all respondents. So this is a question that we ask to help us understand awareness of need for additional funding. In your personal opinion, do you think there is a great need, some need, a little need, or no real need for additional funds to provide the level of services that San Ramon residents need and want. And you can see 9% say that there's a great need, 39% some need, 19% a little need, and 29% no need. And these results are very, very close to what we registered when we asked the same question back in 2023. Now here to get at your point, this is the potential ballot question that respondents were presented with in the survey. And so what we asked is here on the slide to provide local funding to maintain and enhance City of San Ramon services and facilities, including public safety and police services, neighborhood crime prevention, traffic enforcement and road safety, street and road improvements and maintenance, library and recreation services, park maintenance, youth, senior, and cultural programs, and other city services and facilities. Shall the City of San Ramon levy here's where you see the split sample. Half of respondents heard a ½ and the other heard 1 cent sales tax, providing approximately either 8 million or 16 million annually for 10 years, subject to annual public review and all funds benefiting San Ramon. And you can see the results among those who heard the ½ sales tax on the left-hand side and the 1 cent sales tax on the right-hand side. In both instances, we do see just above 50% saying yes, they would approve this measure, and just about 40% saying no, they would vote no on this measure initially.
That seems almost a little counterintuitive that the 1 cent would pull higher, that sample group.
Statistically,
Can
there's
you
no
explain
difference between 55% total support and 59% total support. If you recall, the margin of error is around plus or minus 5.7 percentage points for each of those splits. So within that margin of error, these are very, very close and just above the threshold, the 50+1 threshold for passage.
Mhm. And I think it's reflective of the community's willingness as well to want to invest in the city and where they live.
Yes, certainly we do see a majority saying that they would be willing to vote yes on this measure initially before any further information is provided about it. So we also asked a few questions to help us understand priorities when it comes to services provided by the city. So for each of these, we asked voters to tell us how important each one is to making San Ramon a good place to live. And we did ask about a series of potential services, and what you see summarized on this slide are the top priorities. You can see that all of these are important to 59% or more of local voters. The ones that rise to the top are public safety, police services, and street and road maintenance. These are top priorities for voters, along with parks, maintenance, and traffic enforcement. Over the course of the survey, we also provided additional information. So messaging themes that explained the need for and the benefits of a potential measure, including more detail on potential public safety outcomes, benefits to local quality of life, amenities like park maintenance, library services, and road safety, standard exemptions to sales taxes, and some of the accountability features of a potential measure. And after this information was presented in the survey, we then once again presented respondents with the potential measures or measure, I should say, and asked, given what you've heard, how would you vote? Then we also presented some of the things you might hear from an opponent of the potential measure. So we wanted to understand reactions to opponents' messages. Those opposition themes had to do with the cost of living, economic uncertainty, and concerns about the financial burden that this measure might place on residents. And then after those opposition messages were presented, we once again said, given everything you've heard, how would you vote now on the measure? And so what you see here on this slide is the summary of the vote progression over the course of the survey. Again, on the left-hand side, split A, those who heard the ½ sales tax measure, and on the right side, the 1 cent sales tax measure. What's interesting is that we do see an increase in support after information is provided about the benefits in both of the split samples. It goes up to 65% from 55% among those who heard the half-cent sales tax. And among those who heard the 1 cent sales tax, we see support go from 59% total support to 66% yes. So a substantial increase in support once information is provided about the benefits. And then also we do see an impact of opposition. So you can see for the half-cent sales tax from 65% as the high point to 58% after opposition is presented. And then the drop among those who heard the 1 cent sales tax is a little more precipitous, from 66% as the high point to 53%, just clearing in this poll the 50+1 threshold for passage.
So it looks like you're, for part one and part two, you're intentionally trying to lead them to think differently about a proposed measure positively, and then again negatively and gauging their reaction to that.
Yeah, I would say that what we try to do with the vote progression here is understand what is the level of support today when many voters don't have context or don't understand the need. As you saw, we have just under half who say that there's at least some need for funding. So once we provide additional information about the benefits and the need, we also want to register how does that impact the level of support, because that helps us understand once voters have that context, would they vote yes or no? And then we also, in order to assess feasibility, feel it's important to understand the impact of potential opposition so that we can let you know, here's what might happen if there are people who are opposed and out there saying vote no on this measure, so that we can kind of simulate what might happen with opposition, with vocal opposition to a measure. So that's in the interest of giving you a picture of the feasibility of a measure.
And a quick question. So does it matter statistically, does it matter if they get the negative message first or the positive message first? In terms of scientifically, does that impact the outcome we may see, the response, I guess? And because sometimes some people may say there's a primacy effect or something like that.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. We are always sort of cognizant and intentional about potential order effects like the ones you're talking about over the course of a survey. And so what we want to do, and the reason we designed the poll that way we did, with benefits, offering information about the benefits first, and then opposition messages second, is because that sort of more naturally stimulates the way people usually learn about a measure like this. So we want to sort of simulate the real world scenario and the impact that information might have as it unfolds in real life. So that's the sort of rationale behind the order of presentation in the poll.
Great, thank you.
So with that, I just want to wrap up with a few, just reiterating the key findings and conclusions from this poll. We do see a general sales tax measure is currently supported when we consider the margin of error just around the 50% threshold for passage, with little initial difference in support between a half-cent or full-cent measure. Voters are not overwhelmingly aware of the need for additional revenue at this time. We do see that additional information about the need for a measure is effective at growing support, in particular, public safety and street and road maintenance. We also see that information about the accountability features and exemptions that would apply to a sales tax measure is particularly compelling to voters. When information focuses on specifics around the tax rate, we do see some differentiation in support for the two rates. You saw there is a bigger drop in support among those who heard the 1 cent than those who heard the half-cent sales tax measure. So we think it'll be important to ensure that the measure can be described as a moderate approach to address the city's need. So with that, happy to answer any additional questions you might have.
Any additional questions before we open public comment?
Oh, I have one question.
Go ahead.
At any point during your interview, did you mention about our neighboring city sales tax, what they charge compared to our, like Sandamon 8.75 versus Dublin 10.25, Walnut Creek is 9.75. So at any point, did you mention that to the interviewers?
That was not a part of the particular survey script. Oftentimes we have to sort of be judicious about all the content so that the poll doesn't get too long. And so we worked with staff and consultants to make sure that we had kind of the key questions included in the poll. That part wasn't a part of the final script.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Jessica. Anything for Scott before we open public comment? Okay, let's open the public comment. Here.
We received one written comment from Jim Blickenstaff, which is before you and also in the red binder in the back of the room. And we have so far received a total of 8 speaker cards. First speaker is Gary Chabin.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor Perkins, council members, staff, all of you. I'm here as a resident of San Ramon and part of a ad hoc committee, basically in the city of people who, a grassroots group that just wants to get together and say that we're in support as much as we can be of a increase of 1%. We'd like to be part of the city's proposal in some way. I know we can't be involved per se, but we want you to know we're here for you. As a 45-year resident, I'm here to say that I don't mind paying a little more money to help this city be what it is today and going forward. I served on many committees and different things and just enjoy it. And I think we can get more people to do the same if we need to do that. But I'm here tonight to speak about the interested residents who want to induce a formation of a committee to support the city in the finding of revenue sources to sustain the standard of services we have become accustomed to here in San Ramon. We don't want to give anything up. So why and how was this committee formed? We as a grassroots group of San Ramon residents concerned about the condition of the current city and the future of the budgets of the city and the expectations of a shortfall in the short term and in the long term. We are here to encourage the city to consider the support of the 1% sales tax. We'd like to see that go forward, and we support that. Our group of residents held a series of meetings during the last several weeks on Zoom at local restaurants, one with the city manager and his team members, and that was to educate us about what's going on in San Ramon with finances. I personally have been at 3 different presentations in person and 1 online. Currently, 40+ residents have signed up to be a part of this residents group, and we're getting more all the time. And we're a very diverse group, and more people, as we've been going into this, have decided they would like to be part of it. So we see some encouragement coming. So we're new at it. We're just trying to put something together. We need some feedback from time to time on how we need to get there. But I think as a group, we're working very well together and meeting frequently enough, I think, to make an impact with some other residents within the city. Our committee has a diverse membership, and we want it to grow. As you noted, Marisol, the city's growing. That doesn't mean that the budget should be less. It's going to have to grow somehow. We don't have all the answers, but we sure want to look into it and see what we can do. And I'd like to transfer this over to my co-chair on the committee, Robert.
You got his card then, John? Yep. Thank you.
I do have a speaker card from Robert Bickle.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Council, City Manager, Councilor, City Staff. My name is Robert Bickle. I'm a 12-year resident of San Ramon. And as Gary indicated, I'm helping him lead a grassroots committee, concerned citizens to support a sales tax measure on the November ballot. I currently sit on the San Ramon Arts Advisory Committee, and I'm a recent graduate of what I call the 4 Horsemen, Leadership San Ramon, Government 101, the Planning Academy, and the San Ramon Community Academy. I'd like to kind of focus on and outline the steps our committee has taken to arrive at our recommendation. Okay. Number 1, we've attended numerous budget reviews with city staff including city manager and direct staff. We've done multiple deep dives on the city's financials, including its historical financial performance, which I'll talk about in a minute, this year's actual spending, and next year's proposed budget. Number three, we've developed a solid understanding of the options available to the city to balance the budget and the impact on public safety and service levels if the proposed budget cuts are approved. And number four, we've completed an analysis of how San Ramon's financial performance compares to neighboring cities and towns, including some of the large structural disadvantages unique to San Ramon, including such things as a limited revenue base due to a relatively small retail and hotel footprint. We've kind of come to the following conclusions. Number one, that the city's current financial model is not sustainable. The city has run on deficits of around $5 to $7 million over the last 4 or 5 years, and relying on one-off county, state, and federal grants and other temporary measures to balance the budget. We feel that we need to stabilize the city's financial model. Number two, we also concluded the city does more with less than a number of neighboring areas and is highly efficient at providing services to our residents. Number three, we have concluded the city has demonstrated themselves to be transparent, available, and honest brokers of information. Number four, we could concluded that increasing the city's revenue via a sales tax increase is the best of the available alternatives, which would A, stabilize the city's financial model, B, allow the city to maintain its current service levels in the areas of public safety, roads infrastructure, and park and recreation areas, to mention a few. And lastly, it would only require a small investment, relatively small investment, from our residents to pay for it. I believe would be $50 for every $5,000 spent in San Ramon per citizen. So to summarize, our recommended components of the sales tax measure are A, a 1% increase in the sales tax rate, B, a sunset clause of 10 years to allow for a future review by residents, and three, some mechanism to include resident oversight to ensure the integrity of the spending. Any questions? Great. Now I'm going to turn it over to our treasurer, Kyle Levy. Thank you.
You got Kyle's card?
We do have a speaker card from Kyle Levy.
Hey, Kyle?
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Hudson, members of the City Council, staff. My name is Kyle Levy. I am a almost 25-year resident of San Ramon. I was fortunate enough to grow up here and to attend the public schools, and then even more fortunate to be able to live here as an adult and get involved. I'm currently a member of the city's Parks and Community Services Commission, and I'm also involved with the board of the San Ramon Library Foundation. And through those positions, I've been able to see some of the impact of the city's financial outlook, particularly on the parks and community services programs that the city offers and the library hours that the city supports. I volunteered to serve as treasurer of this grassroots committee and assist the others with the formation. We're not really at the point yet where we're raising or spending any money on this potential revenue measure. It's a little premature, but in the weeks to come, we'll be filing the necessary paperwork to legally establish us as an entity to do that. I'll also be responsible for the committee's compliance with legal and regulatory requirements, as well as the budgeting, financial planning, and and fundraising oversight of that committee. It's a lot of responsibility, but I feel that this effort is important and I need to support it in any way that I can. I've been able to observe the city's operations and learn more about its workings, and I've reviewed the information that the city has provided to the public about its financial outlook, much of what you've seen touched on here tonight. I appreciate the transparency that the city has shown on this matter. And I get the feeling that we're having this conversation now because it's become absolutely necessary for us to have it. It's not an easy thing for the city to ask for what it's contemplating here, to ask the residents for that. And that's why the city has never asked the residents for something like this. If you read the news, we're hardly alone. Many other communities are facing similar challenges. It's just the result of a changing world. I've spoken to many of my fellow residents who feel exactly the same way. Cities are ultimately mission-driven, and that mission is to deliver the highest quality services possible to residents at a reasonable cost. And in that respect, I know that San Ramon has done so many things right. A long history of balanced budgets, not paying for operating expenses with borrowed funds, a high credit rating, a strong reserve policy, and a fairly lean staff for a city of our size. Any city has items that are, nice to haves or wants, as well as must haves or needs. And for what it's worth, I think the city has done an excellent job of prioritizing the must haves and the needs, particularly when it comes to public safety, library hours, and its staunch support for parks and community services. But with everything that I've learned, I've come to the conclusion, as have the others, that without additional revenue, that even if we cut everything non-essential that we can and squeeze staff to the absolute limit, not only would that lead to a reduced quality of life that I think most residents would find entirely unacceptable, but the cost of the things that the city absolutely has to do and must have will just continue to decrease and exceed the revenues that the city has without drastic action being taken. We'd be locked in a never-ending cycle of program cuts year after year. That's not a future that I want for San Ramon. And I think a lot of residents of San Ramon don't want to see that either. I've sought out others who feel the same way I have. And if the presentation tonight is any indication, we're not alone. I urge this council to take the steps necessary to pursue additional revenue for San Ramon under the terms that my fellow committee members have already discussed. And I urge any residents out there who feel the same way to seek us out and learn more about how they may be able to help with these efforts to secure San Ramon's future. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Joan, can you call the next speaker, please?
Yes, next speaker is Rob Macer.
Good evening, Mayor, Hudson City Council. Thank you for the opportunity to talk with you tonight. My name is Rob Macer. I'm a lifelong San Ramon resident, which for me means twice as long as what Kyle just mentioned, 50 plus years. So I grew up here, and my wife and I decided we raise our family here too. So we're invested, and we've spent quite a bit of time and energy on this city, and so have our families, and including plenty of volunteer work. I recently graduated from the Planning Academy, Government 101, hope to get into the Police Community Academy as well. And I'm part of the committee that's been put together, and I'm a concerned San Ramon resident about our financial situation. And I am the communications lead for our committee. And I'd like to give you just a brief profile of our intentions and our strategy. As a committee, our community strategy will be to produce straightforward, easy to digest, genuine and credible messaging for San Ramon residents. We feel it's super important that if residents are going to vote for a potential measure, that they understand what they're getting. Listening to the presentation a moment ago and understanding the information that goes behind this measure made a big difference in those statistical numbers. And if we can make that straightforward and accessible, understanding all the work that the city staff and manager have gone through to reach out to citizens, it still seems like we need to continue to push those messages forward. And that's our intention. And we intend to do it in that manner, including heavy reliance on the city's published materials. We're on our way to building a website with a healthy amount of frequently asked questions. We intend to hold educational engagements with residents, certainly plenty of educational materials and social media posts, neighborhood canvassing, and plenty more to help residents understand this measure. So we invite people to join us in support of this potential measure, and they can contact us. We've set up an email at futureofsanramon@gmail.com. That's futureofsanramon@gmail.com. And we thank and appreciate the city council and staff's work on the budget and financial situation. And thank you for this opportunity tonight.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Greg Carr.
Greg.
Contrary to popular belief, I don't like coming up here and speaking, but I'd rather do something else. It's a pleasure to see four competent people speak before me. They truly believe that the tax hike is the way to go. And it's good to have them come down and speak. I don't have that view. My view is that before you go ask the people for a % tax, you try to exhaust every other measure, every other possibility through staff. And there are more staff cuts that could be done. There are more things that could be tabled. But we seem to be going straight to the sales tax. Just a heads up that the Tri-Valley, both San Ramon and Vanville are 875. Dublin, Pleasanton, and Livermore, 10.25. And right now, Pleasanton is going after another 0.5%. So what they're doing is they're basically kicking the can down the road. If we do that, if we go with 0.5% or percent, whatever, there will be a reckoning. It'll be out a year or two. And the things put forward by Mark and, Marisol as things we're going to have to consider in the future are very poignant, very accurate. And it's a shame to have to put it off and kick the can down the road, but so be it. The thing is, we have to learn to live within our means. I know people hear that and you get tired. Oh, well, what the hell do you know? Well, that's, each of us has to balance the checkbook. And our checkbook's not balanced, contrary to what I thought I saw in the two items today, 8.1 and 9.1. Anyway, I'm concerned about the fact that the school district, measure failed. It didn't fail by a lot, but it failed. And there was an amount of money spent to do that. We'll do the same thing. We'll spend however much it's going to cost to go to the people and ask for 1% or 0.5% or whatever. And it might not be money well spent until the people can be shown that the council, the staff, everybody has exhausted every measure and cut it to the bone. Now, I happened to attend some of those meetings of these folks. We're all good folks. One person suggested that she didn't like the concept of cutting to the bone first. She didn't want to do that. She wanted to go straight to 1%. Okay, so be it. That's her thinking. I just don't agree with that. I think we ought to not go to the well until we're sure we've exhausted everything in our bag of tricks to save money. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. Next speaker, please.
Robert Downham.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Thank you for allowing me to speak, and General Manager, staff. First, I'm in support of the committee for proposing a sales tax increase. I'm against cutting costs. As time goes on, expenses continue to rise. There's nothing we really can do about that. Inflation, the costs of services and goods continue to rise. And unless we've got a magic wand to prevent everything and allow expenses to continue at a straight line rate, we'll always see increases in costs. So what do? We really can't cut down to the bone, as they say. I think it's unworkable. I think that given the greatness of our city, the level of quality of our police force, our fire department, our city members, I think at the end of the day, we get what we pay for, and we've got quality now. The question is, do we want to give up that quality by cutting to the bone or foregoing a sales tax increase? Honestly, I think going from an 8.75% sales tax rate to a 9.25% rate is reasonable. I do have a question as to how much that amount of increase would cover the deficit that we're now seeing. But on a going forward basis, if we want to continue residing in a city as good as we have, this is a tough choice. And I'd recommend going forward with a sales tax proposal. And again, thank you for having the courage, all of you, to consider this over the past 4 or 5 months. It hasn't been easy. We can see the pain and all the thought that all the city members are going through, employees and council members. So it's a tough decision, but who said it wouldn't be? To live here in San Ramon and to get the great services that we have, I think 1/2 cents of sales tax increase is far well worth it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Joanne Barron.
Thank you, and I'll be brief. I'm a member of the Board of Directors for the San Ramon Library Foundation. And I was very disappointed to see that libraries came out on the bottom of the survey. But for us, they're very important. And that I volunteer in the bookstore, in the library regularly, and I see how frequently they are full of people and all the programs they provide and the support for the education that is so important to our residents here in San Ramon. And I just wanted to say, I really do support the increase to the sales tax. We can only get what we pay for. And this is a fabulous city. The parks are fabulous. The city services are wonderful. I would love to see the library not have to cut their hours. But anyway, I wanted to just say that I totally support the increase to the sales tax so that we can continue to be the great city that we've been. Thank you.
I'd like to comment briefly. While libraries were at the bottom of that page, there were more items below it, and you made the first page.
Oh, good.
Okay.
I feel better.
Yes. And what was it? 59% of the people support library activities. There were multiple items that didn't even raise to 50%. So you made the first page. So you should be grateful that you made the first page because
Very good.
not everybody did.
Thank you so much.
Isn't that
I
right,
didn't
Scott?
realize that.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Card, please.
Our last speaker card is from Bill Clarkson.
Mayor Hudson, city council members. First off, I would like to share with you that to my knowledge, this citizens committee is been created very organically. By that, I mean, I don't believe they've met with any of you, have they? They haven't met with you. I think the public should know that the citizens are very, very concerned about the financial situation of the city, and they have gotten together and they've been meeting and they've been working the last couple of months. And I want to look at them again and say, thank you for what you've done and getting involved and caring about this, doing a lot of research, going to public meetings. And I really appreciate the fact that this is something which is clear to you. There are already 45, 46 of them who've stepped up, who want to get involved. More will come as if you can choose to do it, actually. The second point I want to make, and I think you know this better than everybody, but I want to talk about it again. So about 70% of your expenses you spend just on public safety, infrastructure, and your parks. And if we have these kinds of cuts come to our city, if they become permanent, we don't have the sales tax passed, you're looking at making cuts that are going to make substantial inroads on public safety, on our infrastructure, and our parks. There's nothing you can do to get around it. We could let go almost all of our general overhead. We could try to find ways to cut our administration to the actual bone, and you will still have to make substantial cuts in our parks and our public services and our public safety. And so I think I really appeal to the residents of San Ramon that they realize if they enjoy the quality of life in San Ramon, that we may have to step up and do it. I don't like taxes. I think we have too many taxes in California. But I'm not going to let that feeling get in the way of destroying our city. A city which is one of the finest places to live anywhere in the Bay Area. We're ranked as one of the best places to raise a family, one of the safest cities around, and there's a reason for it. We've invested in our public safety. We've invested in our infrastructure. We've built beautiful parks. It's up to our generation that's around here now. Are we going to step up and pay the piper to keep these services? Or are we going to say, enough's enough, we don't want to spend it, we'll let things start to fall apart? We have a generation following us. We have a responsibility to make sure we leave the city even in better shape than when we found it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor. Is there anyone else that want to speak and didn't turn in a card? It's last call for public comment. Seeing none, close the public comment. Matters before the council. I'd like to get an answer, if possible, that guy's question. If you heard that, Stephen.
Of how much the tax measure would raise?
Oh.
Yes, at the half cent level, that would be 8 million a year, and at the full cent level, 16 million a year.
Okay.
However, the council does have a general fund reserve policy, so for every dollar that's raised, the current policy sets aside 36 cents. So, at the 8 million level, that would be about $5 million of actual usable funding. And at the $16 million level, that would be about 10 million of available funding.
Comments, council?
Yeah, I was gonna
Go ahead.
mention that the deficit we worked over the past 2.5 months on was 17.6 million. So if you do a 1%, that would generate $16 million of new revenue, but only about 10 to 11 million dollars of new spending. So a 1% doesn't even cover the prior or the current year deficit that we worked through. The 0.5% wouldn't even cover 30% of that deficit. So people need to understand that a 0.5% doesn't get us very far. TOT was mentioned. Our current TOT, if you remember from the last budget presentation, was about $2.2 million. And if we doubled our TOT, that would generate about $4.5 million. And once again, $4.5 million only generates about $3 million of new spending. So a TOT, while potentially, excuse me, not $2 million or $3 million of new spending, it only generates about, let's see, what would that be? About $1.4 million of new spending. So while $1.4 million isn't nothing, it doesn't solve any problems. I'd like to point out that, see, I've been on the council for 21 years. Dave has been on the council for 25? Something like that. This is the very first time the city of San Ramon has put out, or is potentially going to put out for the voters, a general obligation bond, a sales tax revenue, a TOT tax, a property transfer tax, any sort of tax increase based upon the city taking action to ask the citizens to contribute. It was mentioned that, for people that spend $5,000, that's $50. I would make it a little easier for most people to comprehend in that, and probably a little more realistic. If you spend $10,000 on taxable items, your contribution, new contribution to the city will be $100. $10,000 of sales tax or of taxable spending generates $100 of new revenue. I'd put that in your literature. It's a pretty easy calculation for people to understand that $10,000 of spending, that's going to McDonald's, that's going to, the restaurants, going to LB Steak, wherever you're going. That's what's going to cost you. I'm in favor of a 1% simply because it gets us about 3/4 of the way towards solving the problem. The other 1/4 of the way will have to be back to the drawing board and the city staff and the council and looking at other ways to cut, but we won't have to be cutting. One of the problems we ran into, was brought up about costs going up. Our insurance went up by about $1 million. Our animal services went up 700,000.
300,000, the prior year it went up 200,000. So in a 2 to 3 year period, about $500,000 for animal control.
Animal services. And we can't not do it. It's required that we do something, and insurance is a requirement. And the other things that our utilities went up. I know your utilities went up. I know your insurance went up. So did ours. And those are some places where the residents aren't going to see that cost absorbed very well. I mean, that's not something you see, is our insurance going up or our animal services going up and some of the others. So I'm going to support 1%, 10 or 12-year sunset, because at the 8 or 10-year, you have to evaluate and go back to the citizens if you want to extend it. You want to do that 2 years before it expires. And then I'm a citizens review committee. I think people will feel that that's an important opportunity for, we are citizens on the city council. And some people will say, well, that's not what I meant. They want to see other citizens. Well, we have 40 citizens sitting over here, or part of 40 citizens that would probably gladly participate in a sales tax review committee. So that's my comments. So 1% only gets us, like I said, 2/3, 3/4 of the way there, and we'll still have to figure out how to fix the other quarter. I'm not looking forward to that, but we'll have to do it. That's my.
Okay, all right. So going back, I certainly agree. I think we need to move forward with a 1% for all the reasons mentioned. Moreover, I just think generally kicking the can down the road's what sort of has been happening. And we've been saved by ARPA money in the past, and we don't have that luxury anymore. That's not going to keep coming back to save us. And honestly, I don't think that's good governance, hoping and praying that some miracle money is going to come down the pipeline. That's not realistic. So rather than doing that, I think we need to be realistic and understand that it's better and less costly to be proactive. It's less impact on the residents, quality of life, as well as the financial impact in the long run. We don't want to be going back every few years asking our residents for a tax increase. We might as well ask for what we truly need and be honest, as we should always be with our residents. As was mentioned, there are things that are out of our control. Inflation is out of our control. Deferring, and obviously that has caused an increase in certain operation costs. And we are solely responding to that. I think also deferring, we also know that deferring on maintenance costs, especially with public works and parks, that's going to cost us more in the long run. We don't want that. If we're trying to be responsible in terms of how we run the city, we want to keep costs down. That means we need to do something about it so that we can take care of it sooner than later. I just think, as was mentioned earlier, a 1% increase will still keep us lower than other comparable cities in terms of where we fall on the sales tax bracket. I just think philosophically, we cannot continue to operate from behind and expect good outcomes. That just doesn't exist. We have to be realistic, as I was mentioned. We can't continue to hope and wait for something like the ARPA monies was mentioned. And in my humble opinion, that, as I was mentioned earlier, is not responsible. So we don't have a free ride. And I think the residents have spoken today. Some of our residents have showed up to share how they feel, and they see the need, as we do. So, and the numbers don't lie. The numbers don't lie. The numbers speak for themselves and show the need to support this effort. So as such, I am in support of a 1% sales tax revenue measure. Thank you for your time.
Dr. Shadar.
Thanks, Mayor Hudson.
Go ahead.
Oh, you want to go? Yeah. So first of all, I want to make it clear that this whole deficit is not manufactured by the city of San Ramon or by its staff, right? So there are so many causes that created where we are right now. So for example, like we didn't expect something like COVID, like unprecedented situation comes up, and which really hurt our revenues at the sales tax as well as the growth of our sales tax. got hurt. Also, our TOT got hurt, right? So there are circumstances which created this. It's not just something someone blindly continued to not look at it and then manufactured it. That's not the truth. I want to make sure whoever is listening, they can always come back and ask if you have any questions on this one. Now, second thing is, as a council, it is our fiduciary responsibility to make sure that our city balance, our budget balance is, our financial base is strong. That's one of our top 4 council goal meetings. Actually, that comes as a second top council goal meet, to make sure that we have a good financial base. And then in order to reach that goal, there are certain measures we have to take, whether we like it or not personally. I don't think any, at least from my understanding, that none of our council like to just continuously raise the retail tax. As Vice Mayor Perkins mentioned, this is the first time it ever coming up. And there is a very good reason. As I already mentioned, it is not manufactured by us, but the whole circumstance, the environment created this for us to go with this proposal. And also, one more thing is, I do work very closely with the community. I'm a grassroots community member where I do have conversations with them, especially the city of San Ramon residents. They love our public safety. They love our infrastructure. They love our education, libraries, and also they love our parks and community programs. And during my last 4 months, my communication with pretty much 99%, I received positive feedback. Everybody loves San Ramon. The reason why they love San Ramon is because the quality of life they get from the San Ramon city. And when, as we keep saying in my corporate world, we call quality counts money, right? And in this case, we are coming to a point where we want to continue that high quality of life for San Ramon. And as Robert, I think Rob measure, thanks for giving that number, 5,050. So I think it's pretty fair that paying $50 as myself as a resident who don't like taxes as such. But then if I want to continue my quality of life in San Ramon the way we have, and I have to pay $50 per $5,000 that I spend in San Ramon, or $100 per $10,000 as a resident, I think I'm ready to do that. And also the feedback that I received, as I mentioned, 99%, they were pretty much everybody supports, saying that if we want to continue this high quality life, we are ready to support. So that's a good information. And thanks to sharing your presentation and the numbers, especially your technical scientific method of performing this whole survey, rather than just going through some random phone calls and getting that information. We appreciate that. That definitely help us on the direction that we want to go. And appreciate our community residents forming the committee. I'm sure you'll be helping our residents to bring the awareness, right? So that's one of the key thing. I'll suggest one thing is the biggest myth buster. Even today, when I had a community meeting, one of the biggest myth for the residents of San Ramon is they think that they are paying property tax to city of San Ramon. So those myth busters, we need to make sure that should be cleared out within the community. That will definitely help us to get this proposal or to get positive result on this one. I would say that even more than 58%, whatever the result we saw today, if we can bust that myth, I would say we'll go above 70%. I'm confident with that. And also with that, I would like to thanks city staff for once again working with the consulting company rather than just going for random surveys. We did do proper, and also we are working through with our consulting services. As I saw one of the comment that we should not just go and do it. We are not doing that. We are working closely. And another more important information is also, I know we don't want to compare with our neighboring cities, but our neighboring cities, they did already 10.25. They are going through this for years and we are still stuck. If we would have looked at this revenue measure like 2 years or 3 years back, I would have been more happier. But anyway, even though we are a little late, but at least we are moving in that right direction. So I'm in support for 1 cent of tax increase. Thank you.
Yeah, I also appreciate EMC research team and all that you've done. And I know that you've been doing this now. This is your second year of really of doing the surveys and things like that. So thank you for your presentation. Thank you for all the speakers this evening and for stepping forward and taking such a great interest in the future of our city. You know, I've attended multiple financial outlook meetings by the city manager and the deputy city manager. I've heard that presentation, I don't know how many times now, different committee meetings. And it's a pretty telling story when you see how we rack and stack up next to our neighboring cities in terms of all the different revenue generating type things, you know, sales tax, TOT, property transfer taxes, business license fees, and that sort of thing. We're at the lowest, if not the lowest, then we're kind of tied for the lowest in all the different categories. And as mentioned, we haven't done anything for decades to go to the voters and ask for anything. And our residents have, you know, come to expect some pretty high delivery of services. And I don't know how the staff has done it over the years, but they've, you know, at that lowest level around us, we're doing a great job. And they've done a tremendous job with what we have. But again, costs are only going up. We're no longer, you know, a medium-sized city. We're kind of moving into the large city as we've grown. We're into a large city category, and we're still on more of a medium city, you know, revenue budget, if you will. And I do think that our residents will support a tax increase if given information. If, you know, if they just see it on the ballot, they're going to be like most of us. And we're, you know, our first reaction is, nope, somebody wants more money out of me. My first reaction is I'm against it. But if ahead of time, I have the right information, or, you know, do the right research and things like that, get information, and it's credible information, it's not a bait and switch kind of thing, then I think our residents will support it if they know what it's going to go to. And we're honest and forthright about that. So I also, you know, would support a 1% increase. I think that'll help to get us closer to where we need to be. But I don't think it's going to get us all the way there, but I think it'll get us closer. I guess I'd like one clarification from the city manager. That 1%, that will go 100% to the city of San Ramon. That's right. That's like the other 8.75. We only get a small fraction of that. But if we do another 1% on top of the 8.75, we would get 100% of that increase, correct?
Yes, regardless of any existing tax sharing agreements that are out there, it is a city-specific 1% that will 100% come back to the city.
Okay. All right. Because I think that's an important point that we need to bring out here. Regarding an expiration, I'm not completely sold on the expiration, only because my first thought is, yeah, put an expiration on there, 10 years or whatever, because that's the way we're going to get it passed or something like that. Because people don't want to see a permanent tax increase. Frankly, everything I've seen in government at all levels is once you start something, it's pretty much permanent. It's pretty hard to pull it back once you do it. So I'm not sure the value of doing the 10-year thing. At this point, I'm going to keep an open mind on that. But I will say regarding oversight and oversight committee, this is a general fund. This is a general tax increase. This is not a special tax that requires a special oversight type committee that we already have a process, a very transparent and open process where people can attend our finance committee meetings. They can attend our budget workshops. They can attend any level of any type of meeting that we have where we talk about our finances and how we spend our general fund. And that's what a sales tax would go to, correct? Am I correct on that? This is not,
Yes,
this is not a special tax.
It's considered a general tax, and we will have, if it's council direction tonight to bring this back to the next meeting, we'll have language clarifying what we can put in the actual measure in terms of citizen oversight. There is some question with a general tax, if that can even technically go into the ballot, but that could also be another question later for the council if you wanted to form some other oversight.
Well, I'm just saying, we have citizen oversight right now, a complete, open and transparent process on how we spend our general fund money. And that general fund money would include anything coming from a general tax. So I don't know what additional benefit we gain other than a feel good of having some kind of a committee, or even if that's legit, maybe the city attorney can weigh in on that, whether or not tonight, but at least maybe at the next meeting if we come back with something like that.
Yes, well, I can say in a nutshell that you're on track with the way I look at this legally. It is an addition to the general fund. We do have oversight in place for the general fund. We try to make that as transparent as possible, and we'll continue to provide opportunities for the public to participate. But to talk about earmarking funds that are coming in and having a citizen oversight to see that the earmarks are being respected, that's not a part of this process at all.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Well, then bottom line, I support staff coming back in the future for a 1% increase. I don't see the need for oversight committee.
Maybe I should chime in.
Yeah.
You know, you have to get these things passed for one. You'd be surprised how editors at these papers look at things like sunset and the oversight committee. I mean, I understand what Martin was saying about the oversight, but the expiration date has to be in there, or you're starting out from a losing position. I would hate to see them put in all the work they've already started only to lose because of that. And all you're talking about is you're going to be judged at the end of a certain time period, whether or not to extend it. Because that's what happens is you go to the ballot again to extend it. But if you don't have an expiration date, you can check. I can tell you right now what the editor's going to say. He said it enough times to me.
Well, I think that's a consideration for sure, is that if we want to put this forward to the citizens for a vote, then we want to make sure it's going to pass.
That's one of the keys.
And if that's one of the keys, then, I'm open to it, but, yeah. And one of the other reasons I was supporting kind of the 1% versus a 3/4 or a half cent or whatever, is like, even if it's 10 years, I don't want to be coming back and, going to the well again in a few more years if it wasn't enough. And we got to do it again and keep doing it again. And let's just rip the Band-Aid off and go for it.
I agree with Council Member Armstrong on that one. I don't want to go back again, spend another 100+ K to get this, again, in order to get it validated again, you have to go back to the election approval. That means you'll be spending a lot of money on that. So why you want to waste your money on something that makes sense? And also on the oversight committee, I would say that our budget workshops itself is an oversight committee. All our budget workshops are open and anybody can come and look at what we are working.
Meetings are open?
Finance committee meetings, these are all like open for everyone. So those itself should be considered as oversight committee, that folks can join us and enjoy our budget sessions.
I think with that, I will make a motion to direct staff to come back to the council with a sales tax measure that is for 1% increase, a 10-year sunset, and in consultation with the city attorney, if there is a way to put language in there that at least mentions citizen oversight, I would include it because there will be people that will find that reassuring.
Yes.
I don't want to, I see that citizen oversight as being, maybe they meet at the same time as the finance committee and they attend the same meeting. They could do that. I mean, or we could have a special briefing for them. But if it generates 16 million against our current 13 million, it will be pretty obvious in the budget going forward what the effect was. And so that's my motion, is 1%, 10-year sunset. And if the city attorney would craft some language that would possibly sound like citizen oversight.
I think the only thing I have like a concern about that is only because I know we talk so much about, you know, committees and having more committees and the cost of committees. That's
This one will probably only meet twice at most per year, and it could be coincident with, like I said, the finance committee.
They might even be sitting up here by then.
Yeah. I mean, that's the only thing I'm, you know, I
But-
think if you can define that better, that might be helpful.
Well, I'm looking, when we get the measure written and look at it next July on the, what is it, the 9th, 8th, the 9th, we can look at that language and see if we like it.
I think we
So-
can come back with a couple of options for the
Okay.
council to consider.
Okay.
But do we really want to have that expiration?
Yes, we want to have an expiration.
Definitely.
I guarantee.
It's a
you
loser
that-
without it.
That there will be substantial, that it would, well, there certainly would be substantial opposition from the Contra Costa Taxpayers Association.
Yeah.
And quite likely the local press. And in 10 years, the people will see the value of it or they won't.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Well, there it is,
Sounds like you've got direction.
unanimous.
Thank you.
Next item, please.
Okay, next item is 10 city managers and city council members' comments, matters initiated.
All right, thank you, Mayor and council members. I do have 3 items for this evening. One is something that we mentioned in the prior discussion on June 28th. That's this Friday from 8:30 to 10 a.m. at the PG&E Training Center in the San Ramon Valley Conference Center. The chamber will host their monthly Chamber of Commerce Business and Community Roundtable, where we will present the city financial outlook again. So anybody interested in hearing the presentation, if you're tired of playing it on loop on YouTube and want to hear it live, it will be a live presentation where you can answer questions. And then on Thursday, July 4th is approaching very quickly. There is the Run San Ramon 5 and 10K and Fastest Mile race that starts the fastest mile at 7:40 a.m. and the 5 and 10K at 8 a.m. You can still register up until July 3rd if you would like to pick up your packet over at, I believe it's at the Sports Basement in San Ramon. You can pick that up over at the Sports Basement and find out more information by going to sanramon.ca.gov and looking at our events calendar. And then later in the day on the 4th of July, we have the Independence Day celebration concert featuring the 3 Queens of Motown. And that's starting at 5. That's from 5 till 8 p.m. in Central Park. And that is free. So that's over in our amphitheater area in Central Park. And with that, I'll conclude my updates for the evening.
We're going to go out of order from starting with the mayor this time. I would very much like to follow up with the request that Greg Carr made earlier today. See if there's in fact, if they had a flag, I'd love to put it up where in Central Park, but that's just me. And besides that, I'd just like to say the rest of the week came down to, it's very sad to hear the passing of number 24, Willie Howard Mays Jr., greatest ball player of all time.
And Mayor, just for clarification, that would be the first meeting in September honoring childhood cancer awareness. Is that
But
correct?
that's what the direction I'd head towards.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just making sure I have the
Yeah.
sure,
We support that.
no problem.
But yeah, nodding heads down at
Yep.
Marisol's next on the list.
Okay, can I go?
Yes.
First, I want to thank Gary, don't go away. Gary, don't go away. I want to thank the Citizens Committee. And I hope you will allow the council to at least participate at some level. I recognize that you've generated, an organic group that is, I think it's fabulous what you've done so far, but I'd hate to see us excluded just for some arbitrary reason. Besides, some of us even have checkbooks. Who knows? Along those lines, I highly recommend that you contact Sports Users Group in the city. There's 4 foundations, of which I know a couple of them are represented right here. And the members of the Citizens Advisory Committees. There's Arts Advisory, Library Advisory, the Senior Advisory. All of those committees have members that have demonstrated a level of interest in the city. And it would be great to have them involved as well. And I would expect them to step up. On my recent past, went to LAFCO, the Local Agency Formation Commission. The commission approved a annexation of the Faria-Sino project of 606 acres, 1,500 units up on a ridge line that overlooks Concord. I voted against it. I said the impact on Concord I felt was inappropriate. It's on a ridge that overlooks Concord. And they had 600 acres and they could easily have moved the units down the hill and not have impacted Concord and the new East Bay Park that's there. We're still studying the Alamo Lafayette Cemetery District. And we received a report on the wastewater services districts. They had an interesting discussion on debt service ratios. They use a threshold of 10% on their evaluation that these community organizations should not be spending more than 10% of their revenue on debt service. Now, these were not municipal, they weren't cities, they were service districts, so it doesn't necessarily apply at the same rate, but I've asked them to provide me with some information on debt service ratios as would apply to cities. Attended the CCTA, the Contra Costa Transportation Authority. We had a really interesting briefing on the Richmond-San Rafael Bridge and the upper deck and the use of the 3rd lane for bicycles. On weekends, it gets a lot of usage. On weekdays, not so much. But on weekdays, the traffic backup is substantial. So there is a proposal that the 3rd lane would be used for cars Monday through Thursday. Thursday night, they would convert that to bicycles. And on Monday through Thursday, they would provide a shuttle service for bicycles across the bridge so that they could get more cars Monday through Thursday, and then recreation bicycles. And Chris Weeks, is he still here? Oh, there you go. Well, you were there. You saw it. You were at the meeting. He was wearing bicycle gear too at the meeting. Oh, man's hardcore, I swear. We had some other discussions. We passed the budget. It's $210.6 million of income and expenses with 25 FTEs. So the FTEs are actually a very small part of their expenses. Most of that 210 goes to return to source funds for our roads. It goes to projects throughout the region and things like that. Let's see. And then they're implementing a speakers bureau. And so if somebody wants a speaker to come talk to the city about what's going on at CCTA, they have people that will come and do that. MCE, Marine Clean Energy, that's your power company. We had a meeting, we received a $380,000 grant for improving our, job placement and training for 80 students over a 2-year period. We have an earmark we got from federal government on 1.5 million for e-bike. Don't know exactly how that's going to go. I want more information on that. And they spoke briefly about the income graduated fixed charges coming out of the CPUC. If you, depending on your income, you will pay a fixed charge. And it could be as high as $9.11 a month as a fixed charge. It goes down to $3.40. And then at the lowest income level, it's $1.47 as a fixed charge going forward. And then I went to, let's see, that was, oh, and we had a substantial surplus this past year, this last year, because it wasn't as hot last year. And the prior year, we had 10 very hot days in a row, and we had to buy a whole bunch of power. And we were looking at a deficit, so we raised our rates just a small bit. And that carried forward, and we ran a surplus. And so the surplus was 190 million. And so there will be no rate increase on your power purchase from MCE through FY 24-25. And it's depending on how things work out, it may not be an increase the following year, because we're doing MCE has our contracts are long-term contracts are actually below what PG&E is charging. So our MCE is 97% greenhouse gas free for the 95% of the people who live in San Ramon. So I think we're doing our job to help with the environment and help with your tax, with your pocketbook. And that's my report. So thank you, committee.
Marisol?
All right, thank you. So my report is kind of, since our last council meetings, basically, I attended Friday, June 21st, the Association of Bay Area Governments General Assembly, where both the county as well as the city and town representatives adopted a resolution authorizing the proposed fiscal year 2024-25 ABAG operating budget and work program. And thereafter, we had a keynote speaker on innovative governments for regional challenges. Her name was Shalini Vajala, Executive Director of PRE Collective. She sort of set the stage for the conference on highlighting how creative pre-development and governance models can help build regional resilience. Her presentation draws on her experience as a former federal official and design firm CEO to highlight examples from across the country of innovative approaches to governance as inspiration for expanding regional collaboration across the Bay Area. She really put an urgent focus on obviously resiliency and she really urged us to lean into taking a calculated risk. And it's important in order to make progress. I think oftentimes people hesitate probably longer than we should. The other thing that was kind of a common theme is we have a lot of grants, a lot of untapped money out there that cities are not applying for, which kind of goes back to why I wanted a sustainability advisory committee and we have a climate action task force, is because we want people to be on the lookout for these opportunities that we can qualify for. It's money we save, and anytime we can get money assistance with anything to help the city be more sustainable and resilient, that's a win-win for us. And so, and then on the second speaker was a presentation on SB 272. It's a new state mandate that requires all coastal and bay jurisdictions to create sea level rise adaptation plans that the San Francisco Bay Conservation and Development Commission must approve. And that was also another case scenario where there was also, again, lots of grants, lots of money out there. Cities need to apply for it. They were highly encouraged to look into that. And I will make sure to pass that on as well to our staff. Panel discussion, there was then after with in closing, there was a panel discussion highlighting how local governments around the region are collaborating on solutions to address environmental challenges and ways local governments, innovative governance structures are responding to regional issues that cannot be addressed by individual jurisdictions. And that's about it. Thank you so much.
Mark?
Yeah, for me, it was a light last couple of weeks. The Open Space Advisory Committee meeting for the 17th was canceled. And I didn't attend any other committee type meetings. I did attend on last Friday night. It was called the Schoolhouse Soiree, but it was a barbecue and a fundraiser to benefit the Tassajara One Room Schoolhouse that's over on Finley Road. And our third graders go there. They dress up in period costumes. They have a lot of fun. They learn about what school was like back in the 1800s and have a fun time. I know my daughter did that when she was young in third grade and just had a blast doing that. You know, that schoolhouse that still exists out there and you could take a tour of it. It was very similar kind of in design to the San Ramon Grammar School that we had here back in, what was it? I think it was built in 1867. That's over kind of where the Morgan's Masonry site is at the Fostoria and San Ramon Valley Boulevard, which is going to, I guess is now by right going to be a new housing development site. So at that site, by the way, are still a couple of the on the countertop there are some of the chalkboards, the slate chalkboards at Morgan's Masonry that were in the San Ramon Grammar School. So I don't know who's kind of working that from the staff, but I'd sure love to make sure that we preserve those slate chalkboards from the old San Ramon Grammar School, somehow capture them, as well as there's the monument out front that is a place marker, historical marker for where that schoolhouse was. And, we don't want the demolition crew to just come in there, tear all that stuff out, and we've lost it forever. So whatever we can do to kind of preserve that would be wonderful. And I guess the last thing is more for back to the revenue measure. Tonight we didn't vote on a resolution to actually put it on the ballot. That there's a couple more meetings, I think, a couple more steps before we get to that point. This is more to have staff come back to us with some proposed language. But I do think that at some point, one of these meetings, we need to also get some clarification from the city attorney as to what the role of the city council can be, what council members can or cannot do in terms of our participation, what we can or cannot say, what we can advocate for, not advocate for, provide facts, not opinion or whatever those ground rules are. I'd like to make sure that it's clear for us so we can be involved if we do vote to put this on the ballot for the citizens to look at.
Will do.
Thank you.
That's it. Vargas versus Salida. Sridhar?
Okay, it's been pretty light week, 2 weeks for me too. I don't have any committee reporting, but I have a community event today. Had opportunity to visit our public safety complex. Thanks to IT Serve, a nonprofit organization with 200 chapters nationwide. Their core team of the Bay Area chapter, which includes some of the San Ramon residents, donated a check to our San Ramon Police Department. as a token of appreciation for services provided to protect our community residents, small businesses, and big organizations. Thanks to Captain John Cranford, and thanks to Captain Becky Chestnut for receiving the check. Special thanks to Captain John Cranford for giving tour to IT Serve team of our public safety complex. They very well appreciated the tour and the facility that they are being used for their for our public safety. That's pretty much my report. Thank you.
Thank you. That concurs. That what next item?
Item 11, adjournment.
Okay, we are adjourned to is it July 9th, where we'll take